Hello and welcome to Inside OUSD. I'm John Sasaki. It is Black History Month right now, so we have two leaders from our Office of Equity, Jerome Gourdine and Iminah Ahmad. Thank you both for joining us today. We appreciate it. And let's start off by talking a little bit about each of you. What's your history here in OUSD and in education? So Jerome, you want to start us out?
So yes, thank you. So my history is in OUSD is I started here as a teacher and then an assistant principal and principal at Frick Middle School, which is truly a blessing for me to create the relationships that I still have with many of the queens and kings of Frick Middle School and families. And then I was also blessed with the opportunity when Dr. Tony Smith was here. He approached me about taking our positive culture and climate and mentality from Frick into the district, and where do I see a possibility to bring that. And I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Christopher Chapman of African American Male Achievement, and another blessing to work under his leadership and as a director. And because of the success of African American Male Achievement, we created the Office of Equity, which I sit in now as Director of Targeted Strategies within the Office of Equity, supporting African American Male Achievement and African American Female Excellence, as well as other departments.
Very good. Now, Iminah, you've also been now in the Office of Equity for a while, and you're one of the founders of African American Female Excellence. So tell us a little about your history and how you ended up there.
Yes, well, I am, just thankful to be here. Thank you so much for having us. I am very proud to actually be a third generation OUSD leader, so I definitely stand on the shoulders of my grandmother. She was a food services manager at many schools throughout Oakland, especially West Oakland, McClimates, and Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School. And my mom, who's currently a principal, she's in her 15th year as principal at Piedmont Avenue Elementary School. So I stand on the shoulders of giants, and myself, very proud to be an OUSD graduate. I attended Burkhalter Elementary School, Peralta Elementary School, Claremont Middle School, and Oakland Tech OT, and went on to Spelman College. And just through my trajectory as a youth, making it through Oakland, and our goal at that time was to make it out of Oakland, I realized that as I was able to make it to college, transform my life, that it was very important for me to return back to my community and bring the knowledge, wisdom, and skills that I learned. So I moved back to Oakland in 2013, started my program From Ghetto to Goddess, and then began working with OUSD in creating what was first African American Girls and Young Women's Achievement Initiative, which later turned into African American Female Excellence. And I'm really thankful for the support of AAMA, of the Office of Equity, in being able to still lead, grow, and flourish in this work.
Wonderful. Tell me your feelings about the importance of Black History Month and what it really means here in Oakland.
So for me, I look at Black History Month as a revival time for a Black History Year, and really making it a lifestyle to ensure that we work to incorporate all cultures and histories in our curriculum, and how our students see themselves, how our families feel welcome, and how we produce results in terms of creating excellence and great achievement coming out of Oakland and OUSD. And so Black History Month for me is a very exciting time to really revitalize, to rejuvenate, and globally appreciate who we are as African Americans and our culture, really knowing that slavery is a chapter in our history, but it's not the entire book. So I'm very passionate about us just going beyond kind of the traditional narratives of 1619 through 2023, but looking at, a lot of our ancient African history and how that connects to how we can currently be great today. So this is one of my favorite times of the year, and it revitalizes me throughout.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Queen Iminah on all the points she said as well. I feel like it's really a time to honor our ancestors And, over the last few years in our movement, because we don't call ourselves a program, but in our movement of African American achievement and excellence, which is the combination of our programs, is this sense of, like I said, honoring our ancestors and having a moment of reflection, but also bringing the point that every day is Black history. So yes, there's Black History Month, but moving past for us to understand that every day is Black history.
I actually saw a shirt that said Black History 24/7, 365. Yep. So
yeah.
pretty much what we're talking about
and
here.
that is, our theme,
Yeah.
Black joy,
So, all right, in the Office of Equity, you've got AFI, African American Female Excellence, AMA, African American Male Achievement, Latino Student Achievement, Arab, Asian, Pacific Islander Student Achievement. Yeah. So what's really the purpose of these initiatives individually but collectively as well? What are we trying to do in the district?
So I would say that each of the initiatives is working to remedy the systemic inequalities that have been embedded in a lot of our institutions, especially when we look at education. We had, the Brown versus Board of Education case in the 50s, looking at icons like Ruby Bridges and, so many amazing leaders, Fannie Lou Hamer, Mary McLeod Bethune, looking at Marcus Foster, so many amazing trailblazers in education that work to remedy inequalities. However, there has not yet really been a movement to really decolonize our curriculums and how the institutions actually show up for students of various affinity groups. There's been a, kind of a dominant theme and narrative that created systemic inequalities. So each of our targeted strategies within the Office of Equity works to really welcome and support students and families and recognize them for who they are, and then also working together across affinity groups, across different areas of diversity that we all bring to the table, and how we can come together and transform and revolutionize our school system to meet our communities where they are and get them where they need to be.
You mentioned decolonize our curriculum. What does that mean?
So there's always been, a Eurocentric viewpoint with our curriculum. So, for example, in terms of African American Male Achievement, African American Female Excellence, we have a curriculum that's actually A through G approved UC that really stresses our cultural identity, which ultimately will benefit our self-identity. So this decolonization is not just Oakland, it's across this country. As you can see in some states, state governments are literally trying to ban us and all others understanding who we are as a people and our histories. And I just want to add to what Queen Iminah said, is that we are directly connected, to our goals of a theme of addressing, attendance, literacy, A through G, our graduation rates, and the benefit. We work as a group. However, we honor and respect each other's affinities. So, for example, at Frick this past week was World Job Day, which was just phenomenal for our Arab American brothers and sisters, right? At the beginning of February was for an honor in our Asian brothers and sisters, and we work really closely with our Latino brothers and sisters as well. So it's all connected. So when you talk about to our goals as a district, we're embedded and we're connected to it.
Really kind of speaks to the idea that the people in power are the ones who write the history, right? And so what does that mean for the rest of us? How do we overcome that? And it sounds like that's really what this is about. It's about celebrating Black history and making sure that those things are not forgotten, and that the people who have historically been in power in our country and in our world are not the ones determining, like you said, in some states right now, like they're trying to do in, say, Florida, trying to get rid of Black history and trying to get rid of AP
African American Studies.
African American Studies. Yeah.
Right.
So that's clearly trying to erase a lot of what has gotten us where we are today. So it's just,
there was a walkout actually that happened yesterday at a majorly black high school in Alabama, where for their Black History Month program, they were specifically instructed not to mention slavery or the civil rights era in talking about Black history at a Black History Month program. So there's a movement that's happening, surprisingly, to recolonize our education systems even more, because
which is really unfortunate.
You can't talk about Black history without those things in America. So just seeing like the tide on in other communities where like the marginalization and also the silencing and denial of just the realities that we've faced is it's really endemic in terms of how it's manifesting.
And even more the reason we need our movement and our program in OUSD. And I'm just really proud to say that there's been pretty much on a weekly basis for the last 3 months outpouring of different principles. We want to bring AMA and OFI to the school. We see a need for it. We understand why, so that that once again for me is kind of a signature of Oakland always being in front of the revolution, almost creating the revolution in a very positive manner, right? And we know that, like I said, it is African American achievement and excellence. However, like we just said earlier, we're part of Office of Equity, so that includes our other targeted groups as well.
Very good. With that in mind, you just mentioned the needs. From your perspective, what are really the biggest, most prominent needs that our black and brown kids are dealing with right now?
I would say number one is literacy. That's something that's a need across any racial group, affinity space, any demographic we're looking at within our students. Literacy is the key to learning and to education, and just looking at the collective hit everyone took with COVID, pandemic learning, and there were already issues before that, just in terms of the resources that are available versus the needs that are available. There's always been a gap, but the pandemic really stratified that even more. So looking at our African American students, there's definitely a high support for literacy, and then also social emotional support. Just the culture that has been created in a lot of educational institutions hasn't been reflective of the way that African American students and families relate and can feel comfortable. And also when we really go through a lot of curriculums, they're not centered, their narrative is not centered. It may, have some splashes of things during Black History Month or during like certain special times, but really making that like a thread in the fabric of how our classrooms really wrap themselves around our students and show that they are part of who we are and who we want them to be, is a real, there's a real gap in meeting that. And so really giving our students that academic support with literacy, with mathematics, in addition to, orienting our students to STEM and STEAM oriented career pathways and just possibilities, while also giving them that social emotional support and family engagement as well. Really, allowing our families to know that they are welcome. We want them at our schools. We want them volunteering. We want them showing up and supporting our students, and also being lifelong learners as well. So those things are some of the key things I've been seeing that our African American students and families need.
I mean, I'll just add, there's definitely a huge economic need. So without the things that Queen Iminah just mentioned, we can't even attempt to start to address the economic need that definitely has really come out of COVID. Just with the level of homelessness now amongst both our communities. So, education could be a pathway. And I like how we're trying to be more creative and having like a lot more dual enrollment classes and certificate classes starting in high school, so that we can start to provide our youth the opportunity to be employed at a much earlier age and be able to provide for themselves and their families.
We just heard actually this big report talking about the mental health needs, especially of girls.
Yeah.
What are you seeing with regard to that?
Girls are definitely needing a lot of social emotional support. And especially with African American girls, a lot of culturally relevant social emotional support. With the pandemic, there was also a huge rise in social media engagement and kind of codependency in terms of how students are seeing themselves through seeing other people, and then also how they're relating with each other. There's unfortunately a lot of social engineering that encourages our students to react violently when there's conflicts, having false beauty standards, having, being geared towards having negative interactions with each other and also with other students around them. So supporting students to have a healthy self-image, a healthy self-assessment, and really having high self-esteem, and really focusing on building their confidence, building their self-worth, and building their capacity to see themselves as capable of doing any good thing that they put their minds to, and giving them the tools to really activate that inside of themselves and each other. So that's a huge need that we've been seeing, and that's something that we are doing every day with our AFI classes, and our programming that we're able to do is encouraging students and empowering them to empower themselves.
Wonderful. All right, lastly, just kind of getting back to Black history, can you each share just one or two aspects of Oakland's Black history?
I mean, as she said, if we want to go back to Ida Jackson, who was our, first African American,
teacher in Oakland.
Teacher in Oakland.
First African American high school teacher in California.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So we could start there, and then I could go back and forth.
Sure.
But we definitely could start with Ida Jackson.
Yeah, Ida Jackson, amazing trailblazer, and it is very interesting that it's not just in Oakland, but in the whole state of California, and part of a group of Black women and men just around the country, breaking barriers in education, very important. Looking at the legacy of Marcus Foster, our first Black superintendent, and just the change and the inspiration that he brought to our city, and then to have that violently taken away. It's who would think a superintendent would be attacked in that way, and what he was doing.
Yeah.
It's still astounding to think about. And then also looking at the impact that Oakland's own Black Panther Party for Self-Defense had on transforming how institutions show up around the nation in their education programs, especially with the free lunch and breakfast program, really inspiring that to happen for school districts around the nation.
And then we were blessed 2 days ago to spend a significant amount of time with Oscar Wright,
Yes.
who we consider as Oakland's MLK. And 2 days ago, the African American Achievement Excellence team visited him at his house and spent time with him. For those who do not know, he's 99 years old.
Yes.
He will be 100. We are working on an Oscar Wright collection that he's completely involved as well. And previous to us talking to him the previous day, he was at McClymonds talking to the McClymonds students, Queens and Kings, about his life, and more importantly, giving them advice for their lives, and how it could be better for them. It's just been a really incredibly emotional time to just be with this legend.
This year will be our 22nd annual African American Honor Roll celebration. Oscar Wright and many of his peers were the founders of that. They literally started funding it out of their own pocket. I was blessed actually as a student to be part of the first group that was honored in that Honor Roll celebration, but just looking at and talking with him, hearing and understanding that he's been advocating for the rights of African American students and families in Oakland since the 1960s to now. We're in the 2020s, and he's still there, still very sharp, still very much aware of everything going on, and just giving us guidance and advice in the roles that we have now that he literally helped pave the way for. Is just, as Jerome said, it's just priceless. It's highly emotional and also deeply inspiring in terms of knowing that We literally stand on the shoulders of giants, almost 100 years of Black history alive and thriving, and has inspired us to inspire what we do.
And as we look, forward, in terms of history or historical things that are happening in front of us, our Oratorical Fest, which has been featured by HBO with Sister Wele as the director. So the finals are coming in March. We're working with a couple of teachers and admin staff central to put on Go Tell It, which is a play that's designed for primarily for African American scholars. That will be in mid-March, as well as African American Male Achievement with the Student Showcase. Tomorrow, the warrior piece that African American female excellence dancers, queens will participate in. So, and then in April, we're celebrating our African American teachers at Liberation Park in East Oakland. And then at the end of the year, we each have a version of, a crowning ceremony with kingmakers, as well as Afi has a celebration with staff and with their facilitators. So so history is kind of ongoing. But once again, to get back to Oscar Wright, to even put us in a position for us to do this, we just cannot thank him enough.
I want to add one last thing, and that is that on March 31st, it's the 100th anniversary of Dr. Marcus Foster's birthday.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a wonderful celebration going on with the Marcus Foster Education Institute, in which it's recognizing a lot of people, great community leaders throughout history and throughout Oakland, including a number of our leaders, Dr. Kylie Johnson-Trammell, our superintendent,
Right.
Tiago Robinson from your office.
That's right. From Marcus Foster.
Yes,
That's right.
Exactly. It's a wonderful
Eve
celebration.
Delphine from our office as
Yes,
well.
absolutely. And Dr. Taylor over at McClymonds, who's been there forever teaching, guiding the kids.
Right.
So yeah, it's wonderful to do that, and it's wonderful to continue to celebrate, not just this month, but throughout the year.
And then when we finish at the end of the year, we are co-designing our Black Thriving Institute that will be the second week in June as well for teachers and our professionals.
So this is Black Future Month then?
Oh, it's Black history every day.
Yep.
On that note, thank you very much both for joining us today. We appreciate it. And thank you for joining us for Inside OUSD. I'm John Sasaki. We will see you next time for another episode of Inside OUSD.